My theory is that all of the development of DNA is based on algorithmic patterns, code. Basically, how do you nature without looking at it like we do, but we can look at it this way. Basically said, how do we do the most with the least, right? And for me, that means that the code that got started that turned into so much must have some very primary principles to it. Primary principles. And I see these as the patterns that have turned out. Like we see like the Fibonacci sequence laid out all through nature, right? That beautiful unfolding proportion ratio that's so soothing to ourselves. And if you want to look up something cool, go look up Fibonacci stuff. There's just so many cool human quirks around it. So pattern recognition is shown through this because human attraction is actually based on degrees of how accurate, how much we express along a Fibonacci sequence, the ratio of our eyes and our ears and our nose. Um, Somehow the degree to which that's perfect or imperfect, balanced or unbalanced, wide or narrow, what we think, and its basic ideas of attraction are mathematical in that sense. It's quite obvious that the pattern is part of what, you know, in beauty, in nature, like humans have the ability to perceive on a primary level, deeper below their conscious, on patterns. And you look at somebody and you're like, are they attractive or not? Is actually a weird, we can map it mathematically, on the Fibonacci sequence of ratios that are ascribed to beauty. Now, of course, there's more to it than that, but the principle is there, right? The biological mechanism. We're connected to the patterns which have been running since the beginning, right? The old ones, the ones that worked out first. And my suspicions are that they run along primary numbers. So 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 13, right? I think those primary numbers are each associated with a pattern that we can feel inside of us in the same way we can feel the Fibonacci sequence when we feel attraction or not attraction, who we judge attractive. So it's a bit of a stretch to say that attraction is a mathematical calculation because you don't know the formula, right? But whether somebody is aware of how to mathematically describe what the Fibonacci sequence is, the golden ratio, doesn't matter because they're wired to care as a form of measuring genetic health in mates, which is like a huge part of the whole world, right? So these principles, patterns that twist up through us. And so that one runs deep and old because we see it in all the other patterns. Like, if we see it in flowers, we're like, wow. And we see it in shells, we're like, wow. And we see it, wow. We just, wow. We love it. We love it. We love it. We love it. We even draw it and everything. Like, it's just amazing how much we love it. So, what other patterns are right there? If I wanted to backtrack to my deepest neurology, well, simple patterns. And so I believe that I've come across, as part of my spiritual, philosophical, mathematical, existential, I don't know what you want to call me, I'm all over the place, exploration of this realm, which for some reason, I guess because it doesn't make money, nobody's interested. So this is me doing armchair research. I probably need a regular job because this ain't going to pay the bills. But I believe that our inward processes are likely based on the same patterns of primary numbers that we can see elsewhere replicated in nature. So think about, for example, what makes up a braid of rope. Oftentimes it's three. And the way three separate things twist together in a way that friction locks them, that's a functional shape. That twist of three, I call the braid, I believe is representative of a similar pattern as the Fibonacci sequence, in that by visualizing it in the form of almost sigildry, the braid for me is a symbol. It's a religious symbol. It's a representation of something which is ineffable, right? This is where it becomes faith, in that I don't actually have to be able to understand the Fibonacci sequence in order to appreciate and somehow interface with the consequences to my existence, because the Fibonacci sequence is written into me. I don't need to be able to do the math. So similarly, the braid, I suspect, will have some mathematical description that maybe somebody now could do, maybe somebody in the future will get, but I don't need to. I can instead hold what I call open-ended sigildry. I can know half of it, and it's enough for me to know that I believe, like, no, just do it, because my belief is that this pattern is written into nature, therefore it's written into me, therefore it's written into the construction of the infinitely complex neurology which I have. And whether it's exactly three, or whether there's another potent mechanism at play, I don't particularly care. I emotionally understand that my neurons will likely have something that they associate with this sort of interface, like and they're going to be able to optimize their growth because I'm writing my commands in the primary coding language that they use. So it's more efficient script if you write in what they do. Now, our computers are advanced enough, our neurology is advanced enough through our visualization, through our wordsmithing. That's why it's so fascinating what we say, why it matters. But all of that is over the top of the ones and zeros, so to speak, of what we're actually written in. So I try to focus on alignment with the primary code. What is at play in the structure of my mind so that I can achieve what I want at the least cost to my system, and or therefore being able to run more because it's more efficient. Again, there's the computer analogy there for and then run program, so to speak. So my most recent step is to pull this out into the light and just say it out loud, because there's a certain amount of your unconscious doesn't like to do exactly what it's told, but I think that I'm feeling confident enough now that I'm going to start saying it a little bit more out loud. So I'm writing an intentional 5-fold path spell to experiment with optimizing my growth and neuroplasticity, combined with my understanding of my circadian rhythms, my connection to the moon, and the sort of ritual of ceremony that I have learned to incorporate into my life. I believe that all the parts of me will have something to bring to this, and each of them will pass through. This is going to be an amazing bringing together. Next, maybe about a month. I think I got about a month of this. Next full moon, 3 weeks. Next full moon, 3 weeks. 3 weeks. That's the time. 3 is the number. 1, 3, and 5. How many become one, and one becomes many. And in so doing, we live far beyond the lives that we actually live.